Good afternoon. I thought since it's May 1st, Mayflowers, and I would watercolor a few Mayflowers for you and just kind of show you how I do it, just kind of and to show you some basics of how I do it, and we'll go from there. I am going to lightly pencil. I think I'm doing a bouquet rather than anything in a basket or an arrangement. I love tulips. If you follow me long, you know that. I've always loved them. I think they're different, they're unique. I love spring. I don't know if it's because I grew up in the desert, I live in the desert, and so I love spring. I love color. And even though spring comes, that doesn't mean we have flowers. We still have to plant them. But that's okay. I love them. And also, we lived in the mountains for 10 years, being in cold weather, and it was so fun to see the crocuses come up and the hyacinths and then the tulips. And after a long winter, I just loved seeing that. It gave promise, and there was expectancies of a beautiful spring and color, and then also a beautiful summer. So I love it. I know a lot of people love fall, but I love spring. That's my season, if you will. So I'm just lightly, I think I put one more petal there. Lightly penciling. And who knows where this will go once I get color going on it. We'll just have some fun. And I'm trying to break myself of saying just, and it's hard. I did not know I say that word so often. So I'll try and catch myself and not say it so much because I don't want to be annoying. And it's just about, I did it again. It's a bad habit. We all have our little quirks, don't we? I love doing tulip leaves. And you can see I left some white space. I'm trying to break that habit as well. I got in a bad habit of painting and covering it all up because I used to do acrylics a lot, and I still love acrylics. And I was used to covering with paint, and so when it came to watercolor, the key is letting some whites show through. At least that's what I've heard and learned. If you want to cover it up and come back later with white, then that works too. I'm going to go with a bright yellow on the tulip and some orange bases. So a variegated color. I want to get this one pretty wet because I want that yellow to run into an orange. I'm going to change to a round brush. I love this angle brush on leaves, but since my spaces are quite tight and I want to bleed that orange into the red yellow into the yellow, I want a round brush and get that paint on there so it can move. I want that color to move up into that, and then you have a variegated petal. And you want it darker inside here. I think I'm gonna add a little hint of pink. There's no limit. You could do purples and lavenders, blues, bright reds with the white showing through. A mixture. I love multicolors. I'm not happy with how that got muddy and brown, so I will let that dry for a little bit and then bring back some yellows. Nothing's final. You can fix it. You can always cover it up with a leaf. That's a little bright, but it will dry. It's because of the reflection of the water, and it will dry momentarily. So let's get, I want some deep, dark purple. That is not very dark. So I got a lavender purple off of my palette, and I mixed it with a royal blue. And then my brush is not wet enough. So once again, put it there and pull it. There, see how it's moving with the water? And a very, very watered down pink. And then some more of that rich blue and purple. I know I should know the names, but I don't. So we're just gonna say blues and purples, and you can have fun with it. So did you see I added a very wet brush, and that made those colors run into each other? I think one of our biggest mistakes with watercolor is we let it get too dry. And so we don't let watercolor be watercolor. We want that movement. So I dipped it back in the water. You don't have to push it a lot if you get that water on there. More color, more water. And then don't overdo it. Leave it alone. Sometimes often it's better to leave it alone, walk away. Not walk away, but go on to a different flower, do something different. Because if you overwork it is when you get the mud. And yeah, when your kids mud, fun to play in, but not with your watercolors. See how I'm leaving those white? That's reflection of light. Get contrast, bring in your contrast with 2 colors, and you will be amazed at how many colors show up. I want to darken the screen now that it's dry. So I just pulled a different green so I can get some depth. It's boring just to have one shade or value. So I'm bringing in a totally different green. Careful to leave that white space. And careful to not cover all of it. But see, now I'm ending up with a variegation of lots of greens. And that brought it to life and movement. And I want to bring a little bit more green here. That's a very thin tulip stem. We tried to plant tulips in Montana once, and the wind just blew all the petals up, and all we had were these stems. Kind of funny. I didn't know what I was doing. Let's see. I want some more of this purple, violet, lavender, whatever you want to call it. Maybe a petal from behind, poking out from behind that leaf right there. I want to make this one kind of like a bud that hasn't quite opened up yet. So put some green and bring that stem this way. And I got a little yellow there, and so I will wet the brush and wet the color, and it pulled off. The longer you let that dry, the harder it'll get off, but you could always work it also into background color if you want background color. All right, let's use a smaller brush and get some shadow. I'm going to use like a burnt umber, a brown. I think I want to mix a little bit of blue in there so it'll be more gray. And I'm going to wet it so it's not a dark brown. See how that line is solid? You want to soften it. I don't want it way out here. So I'm softening it. Under here. I like that. I like how it came to a point right there. Under here. That's really dark, so I wet it down to soften it. Shadows scare me because I always think, oh, I ruined it. It's so dark. But you can see how it brought another whole dimension to the bouquet, and it's still a little wet. So you'll have a glare right now. So some of you may say, now what do we do? Do we leave it this white? And some of you may think that's boring. And some of you may love it. It's a very clean background. And some of you may want to go ahead and paint a background on it. I still think it needs some more leaves here. It's just a very small bouquet. It looks like something maybe your little fella picked up in the yard and brought to you maybe out of the neighbor's yard. But I'd like to see a little more. And so I want to do a tulip bulb. Not bulb, bud. I'm not sure. You know what? I think I'm going to do another tulip leaf, just kind of sprouting down here and curving it. So that gave a little more feeler. And I think we need one right there. I think what's bugging me is that I left this so straight, but I still like it. And then I'm tend to keep going and overdoing. So, not sure. Sometimes I just have to stop and look at it and see what's bugging me. I'm gonna curve that this way. And that brought kind of some fullness there. You know, I'm kind of thinking it needs a third color. So I am going to do some red. Something red. Or pink. I like pink. It just needs something else. That gave more of a foundation, some balance. It was just kind of scrawny. And so I'm liking this red and how it's bringing some, it gave us a better foundation down here. Now you can go crazy and go overboard, or stop and pause and think about. See, it'd be really easy for me to start putting red everywhere, but I'm making myself stop and pause right here. I'm going to blot it a bit so I can put some black centers, and that's going to give it a real pop. You could do white, but I'm doing like little tiny dots of black in there. And you can see how it's running into the other color, and that's okay. But I'm not watering it down a lot because I want it to be a pretty solid black. You could do it with the Sharpie, very fine line pen. I'm leaving that white in the middle. And that really gave that a pop. And I like that so much better. I need a little more red on this one. I don't like how sheer it is. So let's add a little bit of red. Brighten that up, darken that up, excuse me. Needs a little more saturation. So put paint on your brush, not a lot of water. So the wetter it is, the more washed out pastel it will be. And these just needed to be brighter to contrast with the lavenders and the yellows. And I always keep a paper towel here and I blot often. It doesn't have to be perfect 5 petals. Now for some of you, if you want to do that, do it. I had to learn to break away from that, always wanting everything to be matchy and perfect. I like this little guy. I like how the petals are folding out or bending out. And I want to add a little bit of green. Blot. So right now, all the greens are exact same color, and so I grabbed kind of a evergreen, maybe it has some blues in it, to get some contrast with these greens, because they were all too matchy. And see how that gave that one depth. I don't want just a solid line. And I need some of that dark down in here, because that's where your shadows would be. Some of that red in there, that's okay. Don't be hard on yourself. Try it. If you don't like it, then use it for background paper. Now I'm not letting the pencil showing over here, and I also want to give a little more yellow and leave the white. Oh, look how that's brightening it up. Brighten it up. And come back with your orange contrast. That is muddy. So you can see how it was very pastel. It was just sheer and kind of blah. And then once we came back with another layer of color, it really brightened it up and gave it some depth. So like I said, some of you may want to see blue skies on there. I'll show you that. I'm using a pretty good sized brown, and I'm going to go with a turquoise color, and I have it really wet because I'd rather start. It's easier to darken than to lighten, and I would rather start light. It's okay if you leave some white there. And you could go with, that's pretty, how that's running around there. I don't want to soften the edges. I like the contrast between the dark and the light. And what's fun too is you could do multicolors for this background. You could come over here with a bright sunny yellow, like the sun's coming in from this corner. And you may decide, oh, that's too bright. Just blot it back and bring that light in there, and then go back to your turquoise for some more contrast. Water it. Blot. So really, it's personal preference. I went through a season where I wanted all white backgrounds. I wanted it clean. But I'm liking all this color on here. So I'll let it dry, and then I will post it on social media so you can see the finished product because the pencil lines are still showing so much. I probably will use a little bit of a fine line marker. Thanks for watching.